Back in time, March, April 1978. That's Ray always, and I don't know, I like that painting though, I always have, and it's just an old wooden John boat with a tiny little horsepower on it like I had on my first Bass Club boat. I had a little 25 horsepower Evinrude. Always, of course, being a bass fisherman, you always, every stump you saw must have had a big bass on it. And this was, he wrote, this was just, Ray was always, because we were always being asked, why do you fish? Why do you fish? What do you like about it? And this was came out from a writer that back then was trying to explain that a little bit. But I want to recommend for any of you that still ask that question or are being asked that question, that y'all look on YouTube and for the world's okayest fisherman. It's one of the best things I've ever seen to answer that question. But I'm not going to quote it because I can't do near the justice it does. But it's on YouTube. It's called The World's Okayest, which is a strange word, fisherman. And it's beautifully done. And it makes more sense. I mean, the reason over time that I fish is because it gave me this incredible connection to nature. It was my vehicle to be in the place I most wanted to be, which was in the outdoors, in nature itself. And it allowed me to understand it better than I probably ever would have. But this is you need to look at that. A lot of you, I'm sure, have seen it because I see it quite often online. Why do I fish? And here's me with the first ad of the thumb bar reel that I helped Abu Garcia design, which we discussed in one of the earlier Back in Time issues. And that's the first reel you ever saw with a thumb bar on it. And since all they're showing there, now it's just a one-hand, operation. You no longer have to use the other hand to disengage the reel before you would cast it. And this was one of my favorite ads. It looks like some of the strain ads before, but it's not, because I'm sitting there at the top of the strain ad with my probably all-time favorite angler, which was Bill Dance. And he won Angler of the Year in 1977, and I won my second Classic in 1977. And so we kind of shared this strain line ad together. And I thought this was kind of appropriate, even though it's a Ranger ad with Forrest Wood here, for our current situation in the world with the tariffs and all that going on. Because one of the greatest economic lessons I ever got was from Forrest Wood.
Lordy, look at that outfit.
And it happened during the oil embargo. And this Glastron boat I showed you in the earlier ads about that I just helped design, Glastron boat was the largest boat manufacturer in the world, and I was working with them. The oil embargo hit, and with 1 year, they were out of business. But Forrest had come up to me about 3 months before that even happened, when they shut the business down and said they were going to have to let me and a couple of the other anglers go that I'd got on the Glastron team. And he come up to me and just unexpectedly, and he said, "Rick, I just want you to know something." I said, "What?" He said, "As long as I'm in the business, you will never be without a boat." And 3 months later, I was without a boat. And I decided not to go take him up on his offer because I knew that Forrest had every angler and anybody thought anything about already on the Ranger boat team. And I knew I just had to find a company that I felt I could help more, and then thus I would be more recognized within that company. And so I went to him to apologize for and tell him why I did, my reasons for not doing it. And he said, that's fine. And I said, but Forrest, aren't you worried about what's happening? All these companies are going out of business due to the oil embargo. And I'll never forget this. And this is, I'm directing toward all those companies out there now that are questioning what's going on in our political world. And he said, no, I'm not. And I said, really? He said, no. He said, Rick, I work on one simple philosophy. Treat people right and make a quality product. And he said, there will always be 3,000 people, I don't care what the economy does, that will buy a Ranger boat. Always. I went, wow. And I have never forgotten that. Now, can that be done by every business? I don't know. But basically what he's saying is treat everybody, treat people right, make a quality product. And here's the thing he didn't say, is that, and have a number that's acceptable to you, and don't get greedy and say, well, now, what got a lot of people in trouble is they sell 3,000, then the next year they want to sell 4,000, then the next year they want to sell 5,000. That ain't always going to happen. But he knew the number, he knew the right number, and that would keep him doing what he wanted to do, and that was to build bass boats. A lot of this here, I didn't mark it, but as you can see real quickly, it's about netting fish. We are aware of fish being netted in saltwater, but a lot of that is going on in freshwater. This was Lake Okeechobee, okay? And now they weren't allowed to come within a certain range of the shoreline to net, but they could go out in the middle of Okeechobee and net all they wanted. And they were trying to, but they started following them and see how that was affecting the fishery. And of course, so did I. I started following it. Because the most netted lake I've ever fished back 30 years ago, and even in recent years, was Falcon Lake in Texas. No netting was allowed on the American side, but if you go on the Mexico side, nets are everywhere. You literally have to keep your eyes on them, or you'll have them tangled up in your troll motor constantly, or your big engine, which is even worse. And there's so many nets over there. I mean, but and this has always been true 90% of the time. You know what the best fishing side for bass was? The side that had the nets on it. And I've talked to people and conservationists about that, and said bass, unless they are scared, will not swim through a net. They will back up. A lot of fish like carp and stuff, when they hit the net, they accelerate forward, and then that's when they get caught. And so basically the nets were taking out the undesirable fish, because then it followed the conservationists and the biologists still that one area of a lake can only hold so much eco mass. And it doesn't matter what that eco mass makes up, what kind of fish. But it can only hold so much. And by them nets being over there, they were making room for more eco mass. And if you're taking out, let's say, carp, then it was making more room for the other species that it wasn't removing. So it became kind of an interesting thing for me to follow and watch. Just a comment on solar dinner tables, because I get asked about them quite a bit. And what I'm bringing them up about is that are they true? Is there any merit to following them? And The fault with anything like this, and solar lunar tables are not a myth. I mean, they're actually a scientific understanding of the moon phases and the sun phases and how they affect tides and how they affect the wildlife activity. But here is the problem that most anglers, the way they mess them up, is we're lazy. We want one variable to tell us how to catch the fish. There is no such thing. And no matter how accurate the solar lunar tables are, they're not the only variable. Your solar lunar tables may tell you, hey, up that creek where those big fish are you found, they're going to be active at 9 o'clock in the morning. That's dead accurate as long as some other variable don't get in the way. In other words, but what if it rained all night and that creek is roaring mud out of it? Well, that's a variable that just kind of invalidated the solar lunar tables. Or in the lakes that have dams, and dams generate, and the fish get accustomed to that generation time. That's another variable. Fishing pressure itself is a variable. So it's one variable, and it's good to know it. And under stable conditions, I dang sure would pay attention to it and be in my best places. But if the conditions aren't stable, then you got to take in consideration all the variables if you really want to be consistent and accurate. And we don't know all the variables, even yet. And here's when it all, and this amazed me how quick it took place, okay? This is a story about all the different kind of buzz baits that are being made. The propeller baits is what they call them. They didn't even really call them a buzz bait, but that's what they were. And this again is 1978. This country, the masses of fishermen in this country did not even know what a buzzbait was a year earlier. There was a few regional areas that knew what they were, like Illinois, where the lunker lure was from, where it was made. It's where I bought my first two, going up in there and saw them and said, golly, I got to try that. And that's where I almost won Cordell Hull. If I hadn't lost the only two I'd bought in Illinois. It would have been my first win in a regular BASS event. The next year I went to Bass Champs and I won it on that buzzbait. That's when it got introduced to the fishing world. And then shortly after that, I just told you the story about winning the classic on a Floyd's buzzbait, which is a different buzzbait, but it's still a buzzbait. And it was that 7-pounder that won that classic at Lake Toho for me. And so everybody now, that's how quick the industry can respond to something. And so every company out there now is building their version of it. And they're trying to make it better, always trying to invent a better, mousetrap. But so it's also one of my regrets is that that lunker lure of an Illinois guy that actually made that buzzbait couldn't protect it, so he would have benefited from it. It became an incredible big bass bait. So now I don't see the Floyd's buzzer there. These are all the spinnerbait type wire shape with the blade on top. But amazing bait. But golly, just a year and a half later, everybody in the fishing industry has one. And this is another thing about as I led you through this journey through time, the question of where bass tournament's going to be good was always being questioned, still is being questioned, probably even to this day. But here's the thing I will tell you without a doubt. If it wasn't for bass tournaments, the fishing industry wouldn't be 1/10 the size it is now. And there would be years where it would be completely dead. Bass fishing is the catalyst that keeps it alive. Because every time, if you're a bass fisherman, you know that bait that Welker just caught 100 and something pounds on at this Pasquaney River, it's sold out. Everybody's going to get that bait. And that's why the bass fishing has always been a super catalyst to keeping the fishing tackle industry alive. It's been the creative side that it creates new tackle, and then it proves whether it works or doesn't work. Trailer hooks. You on buzz baits or spinner baits? Yes, I use them. but I don't use, you'll see this type here, okay? That's what I call a fixed trailer hook. This trailer hook, they push it into a plastic hole, and then they put that over the hook. That makes it what I call an erect trailer hook. In other words, look at my hand. Okay, here's my spinnerbait, and here's the trailer hook on the back. On it sticks back and it stays pretty erect. Okay,
It's rigid.
rigid,
Like that.
and it doesn't move.
I gotcha.
I put it on where I put it and make it loose. Because what does it? Imagine a bass inhaling a bait, and he hails it from the side. A rigid one is going to not really move very much toward him. One that is free moving is going to suck right toward his mouth. So using trailer hooks, kind of keep that in your mind. Use the one that moves, so no matter which way he inhales the bait, it goes toward his mouth. Okay, here's the Floyd's buzzbait. This little one right here, that's what I caught the 7.5 pounder on that morning at Toho when I was lost in the fog. It's an inline buzzbait. It's got a couple of bucktails on it. And you see, but most of them are the lunker lure style, which is at the top there. So when would you use one over the other? In incredibly thick weeds, I would use the Floyd's. And it's because it's got weed guards on it, and you can roll it right over the top of the thicker stuff, lily pads, whatever. You can do that if you're really talented with any of these, but there's really some grass that matted out on top that the lunker lure style would not work. And just again, this is 1978, and what do you see here? The most popular lure out there right now is a jig head with some type of minnow-looking creature on the back. It's what they're called the little minnow baits. These were being made back in 1978. So those baits are not new. We've just learned how to use them better and make them some versions that might be a little better. These look pretty good, actually. Huh?
The colors are a little.
Yeah,
primary.
colors for it, but still, that's the thing is that some things just, don't catch on the minute somebody designs them, and they may catch on later. And and I've seen all versions going back in time now, since to the 1974 magazines. I've seen all different versions of that bait. That does it. Back in time, April 1978.